When I started at Laurier, I really had no sense at all of what I wanted to do with my degree. I chose my major, first of all, based on what I loved, which was English. I had always done really well in English in high school. It was my best subject, and it was my favorite subject. So I decided, first of all, I was going to major in English. Once I got to university, I took some French courses, and I was really interested in French as well. So in second year, I switched to double honors, English and French. I'm not really sure why I picked up the French, other than I think at that point I really enjoyed those courses. But it could be as well that I was starting to think about the possibility of teacher's college. I definitely didn't start my degree with the intention of becoming a teacher. I really started university with the intention of becoming an educated person. And I think the best way I heard it put to me while I was in university was to learn the best that had been said and written. And that was really my goal for my university degree. One of the things that set me on the path to a career in education was when I was at Laurier, there was an exchange program that was run by the French department. So the French department would bring a university student over from France to run their conversation classes, and would choose one student from the honors group graduating to send to France to work as an assistant in a high school there. So I was chosen to participate in that program, and when I finished my degree, I spent about 9 months in France working as a teacher's assistant in a high school. I figured that with the background that I had in French, I would probably be able to get a job teaching. Even at that time, in 1980, teaching jobs were very difficult to get, and French was one of the few areas where school boards were actually hiring. So when I came back from France, I decided to go to teacher's college, and partly the reason for that is I got engaged the summer after I came back. So I spent the following year in teacher's college, and then spent about the equivalent of about 5 years in various teaching positions, teaching everything from grade 8 to adult education. My current job is I'm the manager of learning services, which is part of the Learning and Curriculum Support Department in the library at the University of Guelph. And I came to this position in kind of a roundabout way as well. When I had my first son and was on maternity leave from teaching, I really took some time to reflect on whether or not I wanted to continue as a classroom teacher. And I really came to the conclusion at that point that classroom teaching was not for me, and I was really looking for a career change. So I took the time when I was on maternity leave to look into different options. So I was watching the paper, and an ad came in the local paper for a study skills instructor at Laurier. Now, I had done some work with study skills, and particularly working with students who speak English as a second language in some of the teaching jobs that I had, so I knew I had some of the background that they were looking for. But the ad called for a master's degree, which at that point I didn't have. I almost didn't apply. I phoned the Human Resources Department, and I spoke to a woman, I don't know who it was, but bless her heart, because she encouraged me to apply even without a master's degree. It was a part-time position, which was great for me because I had an 18-month-old son at that point. So I put in my application and I got the job. And so I made that jump from classroom teaching at the high school level for public boards into the university system. I knew that the university system would be a good fit for me. In fact, before that job came up, I had actually been thinking of applying for a position either at Laurier or University of Waterloo, and trying to get a secretarial type job or an admin type job to get to know what sort of opportunities would be available there and kind of work my way up. So I was really thrilled to get this position, because it was really that first important step, not only into the university system, but into an educational role within the university system as well. It's really difficult to say what a typical day is like in this job, because there really is not a typical day. And I think that's one of the things that I like most about this line of work. It is extremely varied. There's a lot of variety. We work a lot on a project basis. So we work on something for a short or long period of time, then we move on to something new. The main activities that I'm involved with now in my role as a manager is trying to make sure that my staff have what they need to do their jobs. So the main function of our unit, which is learning services, is that we provide learning support for students so that they can develop the academic and professional skills that they need to succeed at university. So we offer a lot of workshops and other type of programming that students can attend. They're open admission. We also offer a number of specialized programs, things like a student athlete support program and special programming for students who are on academic probation. We work a lot with faculty and departments who want to integrate the development of academic skills into their courses or their programs. And we develop a lot of resources for students. I've been extensively involved in developing web resources, interactive online resources for students to use to enhance their skills. So a typical day for me is usually filled with meetings, checking email, writing reports, communicating with faculty about what they would like my staff to do for their courses, negotiating programming with deans and other people who are in positions of making decisions, asking for money to get my programs going, writing reports, writing proposals, seeing students, supervising staff, you name it. So first of all, love of students. Second of all, working collaboratively. And I think the third thing that you really need in this role is a lot of creativity and a curiosity in terms of what's happening that's new. The impact of technology, for example, over the past 10, 15 years has been huge on the way that students learn and on the type of services that we deliver and the way that we deliver services. So I think it's very helpful to have a curiosity about technology and about new developments, an intellectual curiosity because you have to keep up with research in your field, as well as a kind of a critical eye too. It's important to be a critical thinker and to have a healthy dose of intellectual skepticism about what the latest, greatest new thing is supposed to be and whether or not that's really going to help students in the long run. I think one of the things that I really missed out on in terms of my undergraduate experience was that I didn't get involved enough in extracurricular activities and opportunities that were available to me. And part of the reason for that is that I had to work part-time while I was a student, so that has an impact. One of the ways that many of our staff have come into these roles is by being involved as a student in something like a tutor, being a tutor or a peer helper or a peer mentor. And that opens a lot of doors, I think, for students later on who are interested in educating other people or mentoring other people, but yet maybe don't necessarily want to be an elementary or a high school teacher. So I think probably the first piece of advice I would give to someone who is interested in a job like this is definitely seek out opportunities as an undergraduate and get involved in those. I think the other piece of advice I'd give to somebody is to really do your homework and investigate thoroughly what the options are for the type of work that you want to do. If you're interested in education, for example, but not keen on being a classroom teacher, then another opportunity is working in human resources and getting involved with staff training or with adult education. Those were other areas that I was thinking about when I was able to get that foothold into the university system. I think probably the greatest reward of this work is working with students, seeing them grow, seeing them develop, watching them blossom under your tutelage or under your influence. In my role now as a manager, I don't have nearly the direct contact with students that I used to have, say, about 10 years ago. And I would say I miss that very, very much. That was by far the most rewarding part of my job, was working directly with those students. I would say one of the good challenges of the job is the fact that we're always doing something new, and that student learning is always changing, and technology I mentioned earlier is also really changing. So one of the challenges is just always doing something new. We never get complacent, we never get bored. I think probably the biggest one is simply budgeting and financing. Everyone knows that the university systems are very underfunded, and we try and do the best we can with the money that we have available, but it sometimes can be very frustrating when you know that students need a particular service and you simply don't have the time or the staff to deliver that service and meet that need. That to me is difficult. Mm-hmm. We don't have a particular degree for people who are professionals in learning support. We have a national association that I think is going to move towards that eventually, but it'll be a number of years. Most people who are working in my field now get here through two paths. One is the path that I took as being a teacher and moving to this area from a classroom teacher or a high school teaching position. The other one is through the personal counseling position. There is a fair overlap between the work that we do and the work that personal counselors would do with students. So I do know people who are working in this area now who were personal counselors and became particularly interested in this area of development. So if someone were planning on a career in learning support, I would say probably you would do an undergraduate degree in psychology, and specializing in educational psychology would be useful. And then probably not an undergraduate degree at Teachers College, because in the university system, credentials are very important, and almost everybody working in my field has at least a master's degree. So I would suggest an undergraduate, probably in ed psych, and then a master's degree in education, and you can do a master's degree in higher education at U of T, which is where I did my graduate work, or you could do a master's degree in educational psychology, and that would probably equip you very well for a position like mine. I think it is possible to get a job in the university system in a related area, say for example in a student services type position, without a graduate degree. It would be unusual though, I think, in the learning support or writing support area to find someone without a master's degree. On my first job, when I got that first job at Laurier, I didn't have a master's degree yet, but I mentioned that a master's degree was listed as required for the position, and I was lucky that I had enough background that I was able to kind of substitute that. But there was sort of an understanding that I would eventually get a master's degree, and I was planning to do that anyway, so that was fine. I think, though, without a master's degree, you'd be very limited in the type of positions you could have within the university system, simply because the culture of the university, in the culture of the university, academic credentials are extremely important. We've just formed a new national association for learning support professionals. That is actually going to start in May of 2011. And once that association is formed, students would be able to join as a student member.